Welcome to Behind the Business on the Boise Beat, and today we're diving into the unique intersection between community and entrepreneurship with the leaders of Yoga Tree of Boise Foundation. Joining us are co-chairs Jennifer Knight and Laura Larson, who are going to be helping us understand how strategic partnerships work into making a successful nonprofit organization. Jennifer and Laura, how you doing today?
We're good.
Good,
Thank
Gordy,
you.
thanks for having us.
Now, we're here talking with Yoga Tree of Boise today with Jennifer and Laura and co-founders together. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, hey, give me a brief snapshot about the inception. You're like, how did this thing come about? I understand you two are friends. Don't know how long that's been, but talk to me about how this kick started.
Sure. I'd like to address the friendship part first. We've been friends for 30 years. She was
Wow.
one of my first friends when I moved to Boise. And the foundation kick started from a dream, essentially during COVID of March of 2020, when my yoga studio shut down, and just like every other business shut down across the nation. And I went and had a glass of wine on my girlfriend's back porch, kind of stressed out, wondering what I should do. We're talking about the world's problems and how we're watching the division between not just the world, but our friends, between, the big topics of health and wellness and politics. And so I kind of told her about what I wanted to do. And she's a huge advocate of the practice of yoga as well. And out of that became the Yoga Tree of Boise Foundation conceptualized.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
How has that played into, the way that you guys run business together? After 30 years, you guys know each other very well, I have to probably guess. And so how does that work out with, making sure you guys are playing to each other's strengths, running in your lane, not bumping heads too much, but maybe just enough to keep things moving? Talk to me about the relational.
I'm going to let Laura answer this because I love hearing her story as when I approached her with this.
Yeah.
Well, because both of our backgrounds are quite different, we do have different strengths and different weaknesses. And I think when you go into business, and we did break the golden rule of not going into business with friends or family, but we thought long and hard about it. And it's just necessary to really focus on communication, kind of set some ground rules, give each other enough time to flourish with ideas. And then, coming back to the drawing board once again for the communication. So it's constant communication and understanding that we both have different roles, but even though we're co-chairs, we will still pick up the other roles when necessary. So, we play to each other's strengths.
Yeah. Yeah. You wear the hat that you have to wear when you need to, but
that's correct.
Yeah. And when we were first talking about this and going through the motions of becoming co-chairs, we decided to co-chair it versus having, oftentimes you see in a nonprofit, you see an executive director and then vice president, or however that works. So it's more of a hierarchy type model. And we really wanted to create more of a horizontal model. So we decided to co-chair it. And when we were going through our vetting process, our friendship's number one. Are we sure that we want to break this golden rule? But we're already going to break this hierarchy ideology of the way businesses are supposed to be ran.
Sure.
So barriers all the way around the board, which also goes directly into like our mission. We want to break down that barrier too. So Jen, you should talk about what we're doing with our mission.
Yeah. So our mission is, it sounds complex, but we think it's fairly simple.
We've been looking at it for a year and a half.
Yeah.
In essence, it's three-pronged. One is to make the practice of yoga, the art and philosophy of this ancient practice, accessible to anyone who's curious about yoga, regardless of their race, regardless of their political position, regardless of their physicality,
regardless of money,
just anyone who's curious, this is the perfect platform to begin to try it. And I believe in this process and this practice so much because I have watched it for 17 years change lives, including ours. And so we want to just, one, provide the accessibility. How are we going to do that? Well, we have to onboard other local yoga studios. We need to make this accessible and help other small businesses, knowing that business is so temperamental and so vital to a community's well-being. We decided that we want to partner with all the other local studios within the Treasure Valley so they can also benefit from the foundation. And so anyone who applies for a scholarship, they get to pick a partner studio that works for them, whether it's geographically based or their friends go there or they love the teachers there, however that works. And then the scholarship money that each person is awarded goes directly to that brick and mortar small business that's local.
Gotcha.
And then there's a third branch of this, a third component. I like to use the word branch, you know, all puns intended. The third branch, which is the teacher grants part of this. Our community and our yoga is only as good as the knowledge and value of our teachers. And it is so expensive to be able to, and continuously look for continuing educational opportunities. So the other vital branch of this is supporting teacher grants so we can continue to educate the teachers so they can disseminate the information out to our community.
So circular round of benefiting the entire community in three different branches.
Yeah. You know, what you're talking about sounds like you said it's really simple from your side. You've been able to articulate this for the last year and a half and you've been marinating on it, right? How have you found this when you're going to these studios and getting people on board? How has it been to communicate this vision to get people on a united front? Because people can be people, and it's not always easy to get people working in the same direction. Have you ran into challenges there and learned from what that's like to get people, you know, moving towards a common purpose?
I think we've been very fortunate with our community partners so far. Everybody is very like-minded, and everybody really wants to help, you know, uplift people in our community.
Sure.
So the foundation itself is running the scholarship program. Primarily what our community studios need to do is just to offer classes and a place to practice, and then they communicate back with us. But the scholarship program itself, Jen and I are running all of that and in communication with the participants. So for them, really, there's not much that they need to do other than just accept people into their studio. And they've been so warm and welcoming, and the feedback's just been great so far. Granted, we're only, you know, the second quarter in with our community partners, but so far it's going really well. We've awarded over 125 scholarships in 2024
just this year
already.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to add upon that, as a studio owner, because I kind of wear a dual hat as a studio owner and then a co-chair of the foundation. And so we looked at that long and hard, and it really looks to be a win-win because these clients get to choose what studio they want to go to. And so we are actually bringing them more clients that they wouldn't additionally or possibly have without the curiosity of the foundation and opening it. So the foundation is really a platform to support the yoga studios if they choose to want to participate.
Correct.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, from the perspective of getting something, you know, kickstarted, and, you know, the nonprofit sector can be, you know, different than the for-profit side of it. What would you say is one of the biggest learning lessons you learned about propping this up and getting everything moving?
The language. We had to learn everything. I mean, both of our backgrounds are not in nonprofits. And so just that initial learning curve of all the different words. There's so many different words that may or may not mean exactly the same things they do in corporate, but there's a little tweak to it. And where does that fit into your business model? It's the nonprofit business model, but in a way, it's definitely still a business.
Yeah.
So I think initially it was just learning the language of nonprofits and then parlaying the skills that we already had from, corporate and government and all that stuff into the nonprofit. And so far, we can definitely see the benefits of our background in creating a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the on the marketing front of it. I think a lot of this community collaboration probably yields a lot into the marketing side of things because you're able to tap into, different partners that you got, et cetera. What's the approach that you guys take towards, marketing this organization, and what have you learned in the process of doing that for a nonprofit, because it definitely can be a little bit different.
Yeah, it is different. And honestly, Gordy, we are still like, that is probably one of our collaborative, I want to say, not as harsh of a word as weaknesses, but if I'm being honest here, weaknesses,
Sure.
we are literally in the process of figuring that out. Because like you said, we both come from very vast, different backgrounds, professional backgrounds. I'm used to being a solo entrepreneur. And my business has always just been word of mouth. So I really haven't had to do much. And with a nonprofit, it really is much more peer to peer communications and getting that information out, because I'm used to coming up and we're both used to conceptualizing ideas on how to make money.
Sure.
And the primary way to make money through a nonprofit is by asking for donations, asking for money.
Yeah.
Which is way out of our comfort zone. So we're learning how to do that. But yeah, I think that was definitely one of the things when Jen and I were first like, oh, we have to ask people to give us money. And
our business solely relies upon the viability of our community.
Yeah.
That is like a very interesting business ideology to have to adjust to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing is kind of lending itself to that, because you're establishing not necessarily partnerships per se, but collaborative opportunities with these studios, right? And so having goodwill with different relationships, right, that you're having with different people lends itself to being a trusted name and a trusted brand that, would warrant people wanting to give to the organization, right? Which reminds me, I got to plug this in because I know this has been floating around recently, and that's a statewide virtual fundraiser that's happening recently too with Idaho Gives. Well, talk to me a little bit, if you could, about Idaho Gives and how kind of Yoga Tree of Boise fits into that and how people are able to contribute to it.
So Idaho Gives, as you mentioned, a statewide nonprofit fundraiser. And this year we are lucky because we've been established for a full year. So this is the second year we've participated, and it is 1 out of 3 fundraisers per year that we've identified. And so with it, just kind of going back to your marketing and the campaigning of it is an easier opportunity for people to donate because it's statewide funded and statewide sought after. So there's already so many other sponsors who are supporting Idaho Gives. And so it just is the most beautiful platform for small organizations such as ours to get some showcase out there within the state, to get some movement on people donating to our cause. They get to read about our mission and vision out there and decide to donate for us. And this year in particular, we have a private donor, our first one, for matching up to $10,000 of donation that we received this year. Yeah, it's
pretty exciting.
Yeah, we were pretty humbled by receiving that news, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a cool platform, and yes, we are taking advantage of it. So.
Yeah, I bet. That's cool. I think it closes May 2nd. Is that right?
That's right.
That's May 2nd. Okay, so May 2nd, if you got to get it in, make sure you get it in here. Question, rolling it back, like if you were to do something different from when you first kick-started things. I know when you guys started, toying around with this idea and putting things on paper, obviously the world was in a pretty unique place, and we're not necessarily in that same spot anymore. But in retrospect, if you were to look back about, kind of how you kickstarted things, and if you could have done anything differently or better or smoother that could have maybe even propelled you faster, if that's the case,
Yeah.
anything that come to mind, what would that be?
Yeah, actually, something does jump directly to mind. And I think Jen and I really wanted things to be fine tuned and well oiled before we presented it to the world. I
Hmm.
think if I personally had to do anything different, I would create a buzz before the initial launch.
Anticipation.
I would get the word out there. I would start not just talking to our friends and families, but I would use, a peer-to-peer platform,
Press
through
kit type stuff
social
more.
media, a press kit.
Yeah.
I think we just wanted things to be so special when we released
Yeah.
it that if we had to do it over again, I would create anticipation for the release.
Yeah.
I 100%
Yeah.
agree with you. I initially was going to say, God, nothing, because we did such a good job making sure that our operations were intact before we started. And I cannot be more proud of that. And
Yeah.
for me, that's a big lessons learned from initiating my other business
Hmm.
17 years ago. But I really have to concur with Laura that probably would have spent more energy and money and time finding a media professional such as yourself to help us put together these packages and create more of a buzz and launch. And now that we've done this, I recognize how fear-based
Sure.
our soft launching process
Sure.
was versus just throwing ourselves out there to the wolves.
Aside from the recent, accomplishment, you just let me know for the first time that you have a private donor that's matching, up to 10 G's. Um, Aside from that, because that's pretty monumental, I would say. But what's one of the other greatest milestones you could say that you've reached to date that is worth celebrating? Something that's happened since inception, whether,
I have an answer. Do you
yeah.
have an
I have an
answer?
answer too.
Okay, yeah, let me hear it.
Jen, go ahead.
You want me to go
Yep,
first?
go first.
For me, I think the biggest celebration was gaining the receptivity of our community partners
Mhm.
and recognizing that they are so willing to want to be a part of this journey with us.
Mhm.
And to me, that receptivity was
It's almost
it drives me
overwhelming.
speechless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you think that's because this was a big task for you to, or hurdle to overcome, and you're now just launching it out there, or is it because it was
Well,
new, or
for me, Gordy, I think the only way that this foundation can stay alive is with their willingness to want to participate.
okay, gotcha.
And I
Yeah.
think from my perspective, one of the greatest milestones I would have to say is when we were in a position to award 40 scholarships all at one time. And
Mhm.
we had the outpouring of people because each individual that applies for the scholarship kind of gives us their story and a little bit of background and why they want to participate in this.
Mhm.
And just seeing the huge varied responses from everybody, they're all coming to it for different reasons. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think we were shocked, but I think I was definitely surprised with some of the reasons why people wanted to participate in this modality. And so that
Yeah.
was pretty special
We
also.
currently have applicants sitting in our queue for
Q3.
Q3.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
And I like that the buzz is out there. We are reaching
Mhm.
people.
And people
Yeah.
are telling their friends, and those friends are now applying for the scholarship. So those little tendrils are getting out there. It's pretty cool. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool to witness.
So it sounds like what you said initially you wish you would change with building anticipation. You've kind of built anticipation now upon launch, is what it looks like.
I think you might
Yeah.
be right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks for
Yeah.
Excellent.
making that full circle for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, yeah, which means that you must be doing something right, right?
Yeah,
Put
I hope so.
Yeah, the pieces
Let's
are coming together.
roll.
Yeah. For anybody that would be maybe considering jumping, maybe they got an idea and they're like, "Hey, I've always wanted to start a nonprofit. I've always wanted to kickstart something, and I don't even know where to start." Like, what would you say is some practical wisdom that you could drop on anybody that's listening that's saying, hey, I'd want to do this, but this has been keeping me from doing it? Like, what would you say is a starting point for some people in what they should explore, whether that's from the legal side of it, whether that's what you mentioned earlier about understanding the technical jargon behind the nonprofit world, or getting, your business plan up and running in motion? Like, what would you give as some practical advice?
The Idaho Nonprofit Center is a great resource. I would also definitely recommend to get yourself some legal advice, because navigating different waters that you've never been into, maybe if it's even just a consultation, maybe a strategist, but some legal stuff once you start to get momentum, especially when it comes to like taxes for nonprofits, completely different ball wax. There's all different rules and regulations. So all of those, that toolkit is out there, and there's different places. Idaho Nonprofit Center is a great place to start, and then talk to your friends and family. Do they have anybody that knows anything in the legal realm that can kind of help?
The number one thing to boil all of that down is get a mentor. Get a mentor who has the experience in the nonprofit world, because even before all of the acceptance of becoming a 501(c), you have to apply through, I think the form, if I remember right, is called a 1023 form. And it is a pretty lengthy form. So you really, and it's, you're right. It's like grant writing. You're writing to the government. So you have to make sure to be very concise and write it in a very specific way. And so get yourself a mentor, get someone, hire somebody who knows how to do it. And like Laura said, one of the best resources is the Idaho Nonprofit Center here.
Yeah, they're great.
They will kind of help give you that booklet and checklist for what comes first,
and steer you to all the other resources in our area. So
yeah, that's amazing. No, thank you for sharing that. And and as a final plug for where people can find you at, where would you tell people they can go look you up and find you?
Well, you can go to the website at ytobfoundation.org. You can find us on all the social media platforms at ytobfoundation.org. And they can go to Idaho Gives if they want to donate, and find us at YTOB Foundation.
Yeah, you got the cool acronym, so that works. You can just plug that anywhere.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, nice work. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining me today. Jennifer, Laura from YTOB. Super stoked to have you on board. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Gordy.
Thank you.
You got it. And for everybody else that's listening, you just tuned in to Behind the Business on the Boise Beat. This is Gordy Tamayo signing off. Until next time.